Hello and welcome back to Season 6 of the NMMA. And what a video we have for you today. We had one of the most exciting and eventful deadlines that we have ever had, which first kicked off with an unspeakable scandal in formerly Oklahoma City that caused not only for Matthew Mayer to be fired from the team and replaced by his evil twin, Mayor Matthew, but the team itself, in order to avoid the scandal, has relocated completely to Albuquerque and are now known as the Albuquerque Axolotls. So, very exciting development here for JDK. However, that was just the prologue, as we proceeded to have what I think is honestly the most eventful trade deadline we have ever had in league history. This consisted of the Hawks selling off so many other players. Danny Green, Aminu, Andrew Bogut, Patrick Beverley, and not least of all, Kevin Love. Huge changes there in Atlanta. That was coupled with the Warriors acquiring both Raymond Felton and Pau Gasol, the St. Vincent St. Mary Fighting Irish acquiring Paul Pierce in a retirement tour run, the Knicks acquired both Danny Granger and Brook Lopez, the Raptors acquired Deron Williams with their deep need for a point guard prior to that, the Wiz acquired Kevin Love from the Atlanta Hawks, and most momentously, the Rockets acquired Kobe Bryant from the Los Angeles Lakers, now officially entering their rebuild. They are a play-in team, but they did drop from the 4 seed, as we'll see soon. So, extremely eventful deadline. Let's go ahead and jump into the standings. Starting off in the East, with a one-game lead on the 2 seed, the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think for the first time since Season 2, have officially locked up the 1 seed, although they have only the third best point differential in the East. This continuity has absolutely proven to be invaluable for haters, and they lock up the home court advantage in the East, which is huge. The St. Vincent St. Mary Fighting Irish, not too far behind with the best point differential in the league. They are probably the odds-on favorite to make it out of the East currently, although I hotly anticipate that Cavs and Fighting Irish matchup. Their acquisition of Sefolosha is very important for their defense, and Rodney Stuckey won Sixth Man of the Year, as well as a LeBron-winning Defensive Player of the Year. The Atlanta Hawks, after making a ton of changes, had a little bit of chemistry issues and fell to the 4 seed for the majority of Sim 3, but then they improved to the 3 seed and wrapped things up with an extremely strong team. They moved Anthony Davis back to the 4 after trading Kevin Love and brought in Nerlens Noel as a low-usage defensive kind of a 5. In the long term, I really like what they're doing here. I think that this team is going to have a lot cleaner of a division of labor, which has been part of the problem for that squad. The Toronto Raptors acquired Deron Williams for a massive 3-pick deal. They were in desperate need for a star point guard with their accelerated timeline now that their very superpowered front court has been doing far better than expected. And he made a lot of sense as an acquisition. Deron Williams has struggled on probably 4 teams prior to this. However, he had an extremely strong Sim 3. I checked it out, and he was shooting above 40% from 3, shooting about 44% from the field, and getting a ton of assists. He had multiple 35-point games too. So, seems like he may have finally found a home in Toronto. The Chicago Bulls improved to a 5 seed, which is huge for them. They didn't make that many trades. They did trade Corey Maggette for, who was it? I think Andrew Bynum, and then attempted to re-sign him after he was cut, but was unable to as he went to the Portland Trailblazers. However, this team is really clicking well. They overcame a couple of changes to their chemistry and are right up there with a puncher's shot at making it out of the East. The Washington Wizards made some massive trades at the deadline, acquiring star Kevin Love, who, despite being a big his entire career, is amazingly being played at the 3 here for a supersized front court of Love, Thomas Robinson, and Embiid. They also acquired Gallinari and Lou Williams, just amazing trades by Axel, finally moving his chips in now that his team is doing quite a bit better. And with progression to come for Embiid in the future, I think this team is only going to rise in an increasingly shaking East. The Orlando Magic, after making 4 consecutive finals and shaking their team up drastically, have fallen to the 7th seed and will be a play-in team. Just imagine how devastating of a first-round matchup this could be for either haters or St. Vincent St. Mary, depending on what the play-in results are. I fully expect them to make it out of the play-in with Jennings, Rubio, Tyreek, Josh Smith, Bismack Biyombo, Andre Iguodala. Like, this is such a top tier, top six, that it's kind of crazy to think that they might have to get past them in the first round. In the eight seed, Gord's Detroit Pistons have improved just a little bit. I think they were a 9 seed after Sim 2. No moves have been made for this team. They are just staying the course, but with a couple of good adjustments to their auto rotations, they are looking fairly strong and could be yet another very difficult first-round matchup. The New York Knicks made some huge acquisitions with Brook Lopez. They acquired Tony Parker at the beginning of the year, and Danny Granger now off the bench. This is a very strong team. I think they have retooled effectively, and they just have a lot of chemistry issues to work out, and that's the reason they're still in the 9 seed. However, once that congeals, I think that this could be yet another very difficult first-round matchup. And rounding out an extremely powerful play-in, the Indiana Pacers lock up the final slot in the Eastern play-in. This very strong core, after acquiring Patrick Beverley to add to their defense, which is highly needed, of Carmelo Anthony, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, and rookie Karl Anthony Towns, who's playing off the bench. Not to mention Ramon Sessions, who's a pretty good six-man. This team is looking on the up and up, and I could expect, if they make it out of the play-in, that will be amazing reps for their players, their young players to get. But if they don't, no harm done at all. This team is going to progress going into next season, save for perhaps Melo, and are probably going to be a dominant force for years to come. The Miami Heat very disappointingly missed the play-in. They do get yet another lottery pick, which is good, after, who was the lottery pick last year? They might have traded that pick. I'm not certain. But they drafted Kevon Looney. Kevin Durant and Zach Randolph both made All-NBA teams. So it's not their fault. I think that this is a probably better built team than the Miami Heat have had all league, and yet by a tiebreaker they lose to the Indiana Pacers and are going to the lottery as an 11 seed. Kind of a disappointing result. The Philadelphia 76ers, the rebuild is in full force. The only core member that they have not traded is Serge Ibaka. Every single other player was traded in this past deadline, which is incredible work by Tequila. He got both of his picks back for the next 2 years after the ill-fated trades for who was that for? I think for Paul Pierce in the original season. It might have been something in the following seasons as well. But at any rate, Tequila is looking great and deep in this rebuild now. He has some building blocks already between Marcus Smart and Robert Covington, and we'll be looking at several high picks to come. The Milwaukee Bucks, no big changes here. They kept their same rotation and are ending in the 13th seed, looking for yet another lottery pick to build to an increasingly good core. The New Jersey Nets, also no big moves, did not end up moving Davis Bertans despite putting him on the trade block. This team is sticking together and looking in the lottery. And the Charlotte Hornets, despite not having their pick and getting worse after trading Darren Williams, I do love the move for the future as they acquired 3 first-round picks from the Toronto Raptors. So while they're in the dark ages right now, and this is going to end up improving the Seattle Supersonics drastically, I do think that their future is looking brighter now. Moving over to the West, the Houston Rockets acquired Kobe Bryant. To start at the 2, you can see Headband Kobe. That era is upon us. Back to number 8. And this team is looking better than ever. We finished with a 74-8 record, which is good for the best record in all of NBA history. Highly contested, but this might be the best team of all time. We improved from a plus 18 differential to a crazy plus 22.2 differential. Both our defense improved drastically, one of the biggest improvements of the league, and our offense got a little bit better. The Denver Nuggets stayed the course and went on, I think, something like a 17-game winning streak during this last sim. So don't let that 4-game winning streak fool you. Dobbsy is as strong as ever. And this backcourt is looking just utterly dominant. This is absolutely the team to beat, along with the Rockets in the Western Conference. Finishing 3rd place in MVP votes, Giannis Antetokounmpo leads the Minnesota Timberwolves to a 3 seed here. And while they are 4 games back from the 2 seed Denver Nuggets, they have their first over 60 win season. And I think that both Andre Drummond and Giannis Antetokounmpo finished All-NBA. Very, very dominant defense. 93.4 points allowed per game. This is not a team that any contender wants to face in the playoffs. It is going to be a very difficult first-round matchup for the Warriors. The Sacramento Kings, they are finally clicking. They were outside of the playoffs and deep in the play-in after Sim 1, but their chemistry has finally worked out after adding Rudy Gay. Not really surprising. This is a very strong team. They added Ed Davis at the deadline, which I think was a very good backup big addition. And with a plus 8.8 differential, they are not far behind the Timberwolves. This could be a big upset team, and they are definitely the team that I'm scared to face in the second round. Their first round matchup belongs to the San Antonio Spurs, who didn't make any sort of moves, but continuity continues to remain strong, and they improved from, I believe, a 9 seed after the first sim to just chugging along up to a 5 seed. The Golden State Warriors made some huge acquisitions. They brought in Pau Gasol from the rebuilding Lakers and Raymond Felton to be an extremely important playmaker, as they were left without a point guard after moving Ty Lawson in the Pau Gasol deal. This is a much better constructed team that we have ever seen for the Warriors. And with 50 wins, they lock up their first ever playoff appearance, which is huge. Well, not their first playoff appearance, but their first locked 6 seed playoff seed. I do think that they actually took the Nuggets to 7 earlier. However, they're going to be on the top end of the bracket. No, they aren't. They're going to be against the Timberwolves and then likely face the Nuggets in the second round if they make it past the Timberwolves. So, kind of hoping that we get that sort of rematch. The Phoenix Suns, after their amazing acquisition in the offseason for Al Jefferson, Oscar Schmidt, and Jeff Teague for Kendall Marshall, finish in a 7 seed. Kind of unfortunate that they don't lock up the 2 games more that they needed to go to the playoffs. However, I think that this is going to be a team that makes the playoffs for sure. I cannot see these other play-in teams beating them. The Los Angeles Lakers fall from, I think, a 4 or 5 seed to the 8 seed after going deep into the rebuild. They got a haul, however, between Derek Favors, Landry Fields, Keon Toscano, a first-round pick and 2 seconds for very old Kobe Bryant, and quite a haul for Pau Gasol with Ty Lawson. I think Glenn Robinson Jr. was already part of an old deal. Who else did they bring in? They got Goran Dragic for cheap. I don't remember it all. It might have been a first-round pick as well. At any rate, this team is not that poorly constructed despite being a play-in team. I think that they have drastically new chemistry, but they are looking decent, and I would kind of expect them to make it out of the play-in as well. That would be quite a first-round matchup against the Rockets, as Kobe would be against his longtime legendary franchise. The New Orleans Pelicans finish in the 9 seed with a strong core. No major trades were made during this season as they just let their chemistry build. Kind of surprised that they didn't finish even higher. I do think that this team has higher, bigger heights that they can reach. But we'll see if they end up beating 2 teams in the play-in to make it to the playoffs. I think that definitely could be in the cards. The Vancouver Grizzlies finish in the 10 seed after acquiring Andrew Bogut. Very significant acquisition for them. Then the Portland Trail Blazers. Who did they acquire? Sorry, just one moment. Oh, they acquired Mike Conley, of course, just after the Sim 2 deadline, which is covered in the last video, but this is the first time that we actually got to see him in action. And they were looking decently strong. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't get that last game in order to knock out the Grizzlies, but I mean, it's kind of hard to beat a Russ team in a race to the play-in. The Utah Jazz finish in the 12 seed. No major acquisitions for them. Paul George is having a career season. He got MVP votes. He was a second-team All-NBA player and I think a first-team All-Defense player. However, that did not add to much as they fall to the 12th seed. I'm not sure if they have their pick this year, but let's hope they do for Sauce's benefit. The Albuquerque Axolotls, look at that gorgeous, gorgeous logo, and look at these jerseys. Man, I love this branding. Mayor Matthew wins most improved player, and Michael Ortiz was number 3 in that race. So, although this team is deep in the rebuild yet again, I cannot be upset with those results whatsoever. Mayor Matthew may be legit. Dallas Mavericks After getting yet another sim of Devin Booker, they did not improve past the 14 seed, but who cares? They have their pick. They're going to be deep in the tank, and it's good to add yet another lottery pick to this building core. Come 1 or 2 years from now, I think this is going to be a very competitive team. And rounding things out, just barely missing Defensive Player of the Year, most likely because he had his injury during Sim 2. Rudy Gobert and his Seattle Supersonics. D'Angelo Russell wins Rookie of the Year, and Justice Winslow was fifth in Rookie of the Year votes. So between those players, Zach LaVine, Kelly Oubre Jr., Tyus Jones, this is such Spencer Dinwiddie, this is such a strong team for the future. That top seven is likely going to be looking to stick around for years to come, unless they do trade for an upgrade. All right, so moving on, let's go into team stats. Sorting first by points per game. Man, you can see the Rockets lead by more. It's 11.4 points per game more than second place in the Nuggets. This is just the most humming offense in the league by far. Kind of crazy that the Cavs, despite being a 1 seed, are all the way down in 13. Their defense has really been the story of the season for them, and yet their offense seemingly has regressed a little bit. I don't know what's up with that, but I wouldn't be too worried. I think they're a team that's built for the playoffs. And for points allowed per game, no surprise, the Wolves and the Nuggets continue their streak of dominance up top. Big shout out to the Kings for being number 3. I didn't think that adding Rudy Gay would improve their defense that much, but perhaps it's giving a little bit less usage to Boogie, and so he's less gassed and more able to play defense. Crazy that Paul George is an All-NBA defender, and yet they are the third worst defense in the league. By offensive rating, big shout out to the Hawks for being number 3 even after blowing things up. Also, the Lakers at number 4. Granted, this is very much skewed by the first 2 sims, but that is still a crazy result to have the 4th best offensive rating in the league. Who knows? They could make the playoffs and steal a game against the Rockets. And by defensive rating, unsurprising top 3. Fighting Irish being number 4 kind of indicates that their actual performed defense is underperforming a little bit. That probably is just a chemistry issue, though, as they made that Paul Pierce trade, which was pretty large as he's playing like almost 30 minutes per game. So I expect them to be even better in the playoffs. They probably are my pick to make it out of the East, but could be wrong. We'll see. Predicting that Cavs series is going to be kind of difficult. After field goals made. Three-pointers made. The Cavs just continue to lock that up. Jimmy Butler must be hitting his threes because I don't know who else is doing this. I mean, Mirotic, Kyle Lowry hits some, although he doesn't score a ton. Of course, Harden. But Millsap isn't hitting threes. LaMarcus Aldridge ain't hitting threes. Lord knows Whiteside ain't hitting threes. So I guess J.R. Smith is some. Still, it's crazy that they are that far ahead of the Warriors. They are also attempting, what is that, 5.4 more threes than second place. So, I mean, that is a huge contributing factor. Watch out if that team drops them come playoff time. Rockets improved to 3 at free throws attempted. Acquiring Kobe apparently is really helping us get into the line. Cavs at a close number 2 in rebounds per game is also pretty crazy to me. I mean, their main rebounders are what? LaMarcus Aldridge and Whiteside, who are both decent. But I don't think LaMarcus Aldridge gets double-digit rebounds. Whiteside almost certainly does. But the rest of the team, not great rebounders. I guess Mirotic is decent. So it's kind of crazy that they are leading the league. That's what I'm talking about. This Cavs, the continuity is absolutely paying off for the chemistry, and they get contributions up and down the roster. That is exactly what you want from a playoff team. In my opinion, AD got kind of screwed out of out of being either an All NBA defender or even getting any DPOY votes. Kind of crazy, and it goes to show 7.7 blocks per game is not necessarily enough. I think the team regressing just a little bit, and Dwight Howard having an absolutely amazing Sim 3 contributed. Still, you hate to see it. AD deserves better. I just realized I was showing per 100 stats. Okay, that is a shame. All right, we're going to go through these really quick. So the stats that I just showed were per 100 as opposed to actual regular stats. These are the true rankings. Per 100 is still important to show how your team might scale, but this is the far stronger indication. Normally, I would re-record at this point, but we were already about 15 minutes deep, and so we're not going to be doing that. So, sorry. Get some extra team stats. Rockets only at 9 in terms of free throw percentage, despite being the lead leaguer in free throws attempted, is kind of crazy. I guess having Dwight Howard will do that to you. Lord help us if anybody figures out how to do hack with Dwight. Fighting Irish at number 2 in steals per game is huge. I think acquiring Tabo definitely helped them lock that up. Sorting by fewest turnovers per game. So this is best to worst. This is worst to best. I don't know why I sort it that way, but here we are, trying to get through this as fast as possible. Points off turnovers. The best defense is converting to offense. Second chance points. Man, Suns wrapping in axolotls at 1 and 2 in terms of second chance points. What is up with that? I know Al Jefferson is pretty good at that, but who else is getting these putbacks, especially on the Thunder, on the axolotls? Excuse me. Points in the paint. Bench points. Lakers lead by a substantial margin. How is that the case? How was that the case in the first couple of Sims, and how is that the case now? I have no clue. 51.4 points per game is crazy for a bench. Best bench bench percentage. And we'll do opponent field goal percentage. This is best to worst. Makes sense, all contending teams up top. And opponent 3-point percentage. No crazy results here. Spurs a little bit better than I expected. 76ers, much better than I expected. Wizards could probably improve their perimeter defense. Most other things relatively holding to what you would expect. SPSM also kind of low. Okay, now let's take a look at league leaders. Acquiring his first ever scoring title, Paul George with 28.8 points per game is your league's leading scorer. Bradley Beal at number 2 is kind of crazy. Clutch Player of the Year, Blake Griffin at number 3, not too far behind, 0.7 points behind. But KD all the way down to number 4 at 25.8 points per game. When they are not making the play-in even, and there's been that kind of drop-off to his scoring, you got to think that things need to be shaken up in Miami. Zach Randolph just barely edging out Andre Drummond despite averaging the same amount of rebounds per game for the rebound title. Very curious to see what Miami ends up doing with Zach Randolph. He had perhaps a career season. I don't know if he was ever All-NBA before this. Looks like we have 4 players with the double-digit assist threshold being crossed. Chris Paul and Westbrook just barely edge into there. 6 players above the 2 steals per game threshold. Shout out Mary Matthew in the top 20. For blocks per game, Rudy Gobert does fall below the 3 blocks per game insane threshold, but edges out DeAndre Jordan by 0.1. Something tells me this Rudy Gobert kid is going to be a pretty good defender. Wow, Kendall Marshall in the top 25 in blocks per game as a relatively short point guard is insane. Field goal percentage. Julian Wright takes the title as the most efficient scorer in the entire league, which is crazy. Dwight Howard not too far behind at number 2. Derek Favors does fall to 4, now a Laker. And Kobe Bryant at number 5. That's insane. I mean, he's got to be great in incredible open looks for the Rockets, but it's just crazy how efficient of a shooter he has become. And speaking of efficient shooting, Davis Bertans takes home with a tie. It's got to be going way out into the significant digits to take that number 1 from Kobe for a 3-point percentage. And we finished the season with 8 players above the 3 3-pointers made per game threshold. Tobias Harris very close to hitting it as well. Man, come next season or the season after, I think that we're going to explode to like 12 players, maybe even 15 that are hitting above 3 3-pointers per game. We are deep into that 3-point revolution now. All right, boys, let's check out the rookie report. D'Angelo Russell did win Rookie of the Year, unsurprisingly. 17, 3.3, 6.6, and 1.4 steals. Very strong season. His shooting does leave some to be desired at 38%, but they're a very bad team. So I can't blame him. Edmund Wagner as the starting center for the Heat with 9.5 rebounds per game. Fairly impressive result, although he is playing like 32 minutes per game, so you kind of expect some of those results. Hopefully he gets some good progression, because having another good big for the Heat would be huge. And for assists per game, D'Angelo Russell wraps that up with a massive lead on TJ McConnell. Of course, TJ McConnell not getting a ton of minutes for for the Cavs. Two Sonics up top for steals per game among rookies. D'Angelo Russell and Justice Winslow. Sonics have the team to watch over the next, 5 years. Unsurprisingly, Turner and Porzingis up top for blocks per game. Continues to be impressive that Towns is number 4 among rookies. His defensive upside may actually be there, which would just be huge for him. All right, now let's take a look at cap sheets. Let me make sure that the salary cap is turned off. Yes, sir. All right, this is the time to be updating your sheet. So update your sheet, update your sheet, update your sheet. The cap tables that you see here are going to be what is used to calculate your cap space for the offseason. So the quicker that everybody updates their sheet, the less of a delay that we'll have in the offseason to get free agency kicked off. Should just take 15 minutes or so. Just make sure that this is entered in, and what's most important is that the 15-16 column, which right now is going to be labeled 14-15 because it hasn't been updated, that all of that has the leftmost column from this entered in so that it is calculating your total. You don't need to worry about age or position or overall being entered. All that is nice to have, and if you want that for your own, records for tracking, then that's of course totally fine. But what's most important is that we get the current year salaries in there, so that we can actually calculate your upcoming cap space. And so I misspoke actually. The 16-17 column, the one that I've highlighted right here, that is going to be the first one that you enter. Of course, the 15-16 column is just about to expire. That's this current season, which is about to come to an end. So much cap space for the Hornets. So much for the Jazz, too. And even more opening up. Very curious to see how they retool around Paul George. At $14 million coming off the books for Ajinça, Lakers have bird rights, and we know how much Luke loves Ajinça, so I'm sure he will be a hotly contested free agent, and hopefully Luke will pay him to retain him. That $24.9 million contract for Joe Johnson falling off the books, which means that the Pistons are going to have at least 2 max slots, probably more. Huge thing to watch, especially if the Pistons do gain another manager, which hint hint is in the cards. Wow, only 12 million under like on the books for the Sonics. That's crazy. That is why the real league has a salary floor. They've literally $71 million in cap space. That's ludicrous. Dirk coming off the books for the Warriors after making the playoffs, especially if they make a little run. Hopefully he'll be able to resign. At 37 years old, though, not sure that they do want to do that. I'm not sure if that means that they're going to have cap space this offseason, but time will tell. Impressive the Wizards have cap space. This looks not correct. Huh. Yeah, that team's salary total is not adding up. Oh, you know what? It's because we're highlighted for the next season. Haha. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So now let's take a look at player stats. The new look 76ers, now deep in the rebuild, do not have a single player averaging at or above 11 points per game. Crazy stuff. Brandon Knight looking pretty good for the Bucks. They have several very good players, especially if they're looked at as just role players and waiting to draft or sign their true star. It's going to be a big offseason coming up. 27 and 12 from Blake Griffin, our clutch player of the year, shooting 52% from the field. We are truly in a prime Blake era now. What is he, 27? Yeah, so that'll do it. James Harden kind of shockingly only with 25 and 4. Kind of expected more assists from him. Honestly, or more rebounds or more scoring. And yeah, you can't complain. Team is humming. LeBron James, 23, 7, 7.8, and 2.1 steals per game. I don't know if 2.1 steals per game and zero point 0.7 blocks with less than 8 rebounds per game is necessarily worth Defensive Player of the Year, but I think the Rudy Gobert's injury ended up edging that out and giving LeBron his second. Westbrook ends with 25, 6, and 10, 2.1 steals per game. Looking dominant as ever. Big shout out to Dust as the new co-GM in charge of the Grizzlies. Very curious to see where he's going to take this team. Eric Gordon does fall below 20 points per game, and that means that the Hawks are without a 20-point per game scorer again. .4 rebounds per game for Z-Bo at this age is just crazy. Master of positioning, master of bully ball. How old is he? 34. Hopefully he has a few years in it before he regresses significantly. Bradley Beal scoring 27.7 points per game is just crazy to me. He has really emerged as the number one option over Damian Lillard. Curious to see if Prague is going to change that at all, but perhaps not. Perhaps Bradley Beal is him. Second best in the league in terms of scoring definitely indicates that. Victor Oladipo's scoring has taken a bit of a dip, but also the Blazers have gotten so much better that I think that they're probably just sharing the ball. But he was, I think, over 20 points per game in his rookie season, so kind of expected at least 17. Okay, that'll round out player stats. So let's do a couple of playoff predictions. Let's go real quick here. Western play-in, I got Suns over Lakers, and let's say, yeah, Pels over Grizz. So then it's going to be Pels Lakers. I think Pels are going to take the Lakers. So that would mean Rockets Pels. Um, I think that is going to be a 5-game series. Rockets go on to the second round. The Kings Spurs, I think we have had this in the past. That could go either way for sure, but give me Kings in 6. Then Wolves Warriors, I think that the Wolves are so hard to beat here for any team, but especially for a team still working out chemistry. Give me Wolves in 6. And finally, the Nugs versus the Suns. That is actually kind of an interesting matchup. I do think that the Suns are going to take them to 6, but the Nugs are obviously going to move on. So that means we have Rockets Kings, Wolves Nugs. I think Rockets move on probably in 7. And I think that, you know what? I'm picking the Wolves over the Nugs in 7. So that would be the Rockets and Wolves. And then over in the East play-in, Magic are going to take the Pistons for sure. And then I think, you know what? I kind of think that Carmelo's playoff experience is going to pay off here, and I think that he is going to. I think they're going to beat the Knicks, and so that's going to be Pacers Pistons in the other play-in game. I do think the Pistons are going to win that one, though. They have a lot of experience. So that means that it'll be, wow, Magic SBSM is what I'm predicting in the first round, which is just brutal for lock. And that would be Pistons versus Cleveland in the first round, which is also kind of difficult. I think that ultimately the Cavs are going to take the Pistons probably in 6 games. This is probably the most difficult to predict of the first round matchups. The Raptors are still so new, and we're having trouble pegging down exactly what they are. Give me the Bulls passing over them in probably about 5. Then, fuck it, I'm picking Wizards over Hawks in 6, and that'll round it out. So hopefully we'll be hosting the playoff stream later tonight.